Your heart is your fate. Age ain't nothing but a number. We've all heard some version of the phrase, usually from someone coping with aging faster than they've developed emotionally. But seriously, the only thing your age says about you is how long you've been around. Most of the time, it doesn't even indicate how much longer you'll live unless you're well into your 90s or something. It, in and of itself, doesn't inherently tell you anything else. Yet, societally, we treat it like it's this universally understood measure of maturity or development. I don't know about you, but some of the biggest toddlers I've ever seen are twice my age. Like, how you still in your terrible twos at 50? I don't know, but the fact remains that we all develop at different speeds and in different ways. But what actually drives that development? And where does that development actually happen? Well, as always, there are as many answers to that as there are people on this planet. As for me, my life journey has bestowed a truth about this development in the most unexpected of ways, and I'd like to share that with you today. Because once this light bulb turned on, I found myself able to see more of our fellow humans clearly, with less judgment, and strangely with more empathy, despite despicable choices. I'm currently watching Power for the first time, 12 years after it started. Yeah, I know I'm late as hell, but that's on purpose. I don't like watching things when everyone else is watching things these days because I get a bunch of opinions I didn't ask for before I've even experienced the thing. And sadly, most of the time, those opinions are only based on what other people are saying anyway. Just a bunch of sheep repeating the same shit. Now, I hate to use the word sheep because it makes me sound like people I also don't like, but we'll leave it at that. I'm one of those people that doesn't want to know anything about the album, film, or TV show before I watch it. I want to experience it raw, unfiltered, and pure for myself. I think if more of us treated art this way, we'd have a lot more fun creating and interpreting art. But somewhere along the way, we lost touch with this. In fact, I'd like to hop on my soapbox real quick as we dive into the nature of our hearts. I see too many people treating art and interpretation like some elite club where only certain people have the privilege of understanding works of art. As if the work is created to be understood like an answer on a test. They suck the air out of creative spaces and almost always insert irrelevant details and ideology where they don't belong. As a result, all too often, where there is fun and freedom, there are also chronically online, needlessly technical, academic, insufferable dickheads just waiting to ruin it. And all because they don't have the courage, discipline, or passion to make their own art. So they call themselves critics and pretend that their opinion is important when in reality, they're just artistically bereft, jealous leeches. That said, our job as people who create isn't to dunk them into irrelevance. Because as we've addressed in a previous video on insults, the problem is theirs, and theirs alone. Our job is to keep creating and to recognize what really drives them to behave the way they do. It's a personal problem on their part, and it lives in their hearts. And since it lives in their hearts, it drives them to act out their fate. Now, hopefully they change and realize that they too can enjoy a fate that brings them strength and freedom. But most won't. Most of them shrivel up permanently into pitiable cynicism. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's on them to realize that, not you. You are just the reminder that they've based their entire personality on denying. That said, I'm gonna step off my soapbox temporarily here and press on. I just finished the season 2 opener of Power, and thus far, the series features some of the messiest characters I've seen in a long time. As a warning, I'm giving some very obvious spoilers from this point forward, so out of respect, if you're looking to get into Power 12 years after it came out like me, feel free to skip this one, but I doubt you'll need to. The show heavily relies on dramatic irony, but it doesn't use it as a crutch. For those who don't want to Google that, it just means that we know something as an audience that our characters don't. And it uses this dramatic irony as a lens into the minds of characters stepping far outside the lines of loyalty and morality. It got me thinking that the name power is referring to a number of different forms of it rather than just money and guns. While I find this alone deeply compelling, there's something else that strikes me deeper, and that concerns one of our protagonists and their once unrequited love. It's the age-old story of a married man who finds himself unexpectedly reunited with the one that got away. This man is in the process of building an empire with his wife. The one that got away is a federal agent who falls in love again with the man. Together, after some shucking and jiving, they sneak into their little fantasy world in hotel rooms and restaurants as they reminisce on what could have been. Then, as things get more serious, they decide they want to make that fantasy a reality. Of course, there are rather extreme obstacles to the life of their dreams. For the man, it's his family. For the woman, it's her occupation and her relationship at the same time. To make matters worse, the man is a notorious drug dealer whose operation is actively falling apart. The cherry on top, of course, is that the case that our federal agent woman is assigned to is his. But here's the twist. Neither of them realize this about each other yet. And it was during one of their many hot and steamy rendezvous that a strangely potent truth dawned on me. Their love fell apart when they were teenagers. And that was also when their emotional development as conscious human beings stopped also. Everything else that they built up around themselves, from careers to the lovers they'd connect with before reuniting, were all just placeholders, whether they were conscious of it or not. In those hotel rooms, they're picking up where they left off, in their hearts, as teenagers. They're professionals in their respective fields, but in their hearts, they're seriously still teenagers. All the illogical, short-sighted, naive crap that they do feels far less annoying when I put it in this context. They literally stopped growing when they parted ways. But why? Well, if you ask me, the heart is where development actually occurs. The part of us that I call the knower. In my experience, there aren't many questions with the heart. It decides, it arbitrates on its own. Our minds, on the other hand, are eternally translating and catching up to what the heart already knows. And our development as conscious beings hinges on our relationship to the heart. There's no manual for it, but it quite literally decides our fate. The heart is a compass, and our minds are a dynamic map of sorts. Many of us have lost touch with our hearts and deny its wisdom on a regular basis. As a result, we find ourselves surrounded by what we need to survive, but not what we need to thrive. We pour the anguish from our unfilled and unacknowledged hearts into our jobs and fixate on the acquisition of money at the expense of our purpose, our truth. As we discussed in a previous video on the nature of truth, it isn't something that hides. It's apparent at all times. We just become adept at denying it and staving it off with distraction and justification. To be clear though, I'm not saying we'd all be better off if we followed every desire that our hearts communicate to us in every moment. Quite the contrary. We have a mind and other senses for a reason. It's about the balance of those forces, ultimately, that allows us to transmute our dreams and desires into reality, if we so choose. The value in recognizing this quality of our hearts is in the power it grants us to harness its potent power and channel it into the willpower and resolve required to see our desires materialize in a way that not only serves ourselves individually, but all of us collectively by example. This is the part in every video where we get a little head ass. This series is one such channel, both literally and figuratively. I'm sharing the truths that have elevated my life experience from something that happens to me to something that is unfolding for me and as me. It's all connected, my friends. We are at a critical point in our development as a collective where our shared fate can be decided either by what has always been or something entirely new and unique to us. I've referenced the collapse of the old world many times, and will reference it many more times over the course of our time together here in this space and elsewhere. It's important to me that we all understand the power of our desires, not as traps, snares, or vices, but as liberating, infinite wellsprings of energy and creativity. To live in harmony with your heart is to step into a power that is your birthright. When we unite within our hearts, we call each other up just by being. I implore us all to seek the true nature of our hearts, to take the time to see what's in there, to develop ourselves and build a robust, fortified haven there. For when we do, we will collectively find that our shared reality bends and shifts in correspondence. The state of the world is merely a reflection of the world within so many of our hearts. There's an invisible resonance within each of our hearts in this very moment, and that resonance is the true creator of the reality we see unfolding before us. We are conditioned to forsake our hearts and prioritize survival solely, when, in my opinion, survival's purpose is to be a foundation for the desires that spur us all into action. What do you think is in the air when we gather behind one cause? What is that feeling? What is that lightness? It's that resonance. It's that calling up to a shared fate of something different. Every day I rise and choose a fate of abundance, peace, and authenticity for all of us. Every statement I make in these videos comes from the ever-present truths that make up my heart. And every video, every reel is an extension of that field of resonance. This is why I'm unconcerned about anything else. I am driven by the fate within my heart, and I demonstrate my belief through these words and actions. I make these videos for those people. This, to me, is the point of this experience we call life. I know that these words and these actions will reach the right people. It's just a matter of time. But that's just me. What about you? What fate will you choose? You know what to do. I'll see you again soon.